Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary. How are we all today? I really should start with the friends beyond the binary since that's 90% of my audience. Oh, hang on. What? Oh, shit. What mic am I using? I forgot to check that before I hit the go live. Oh, no, it is. It's the correct one. All good. All good. Excellent. Excellent. So, how are we all going today, everyone? What is the haps? What is the goss? What's the sitch? What the fuck is this? That's the questions we're always asking around here. What the fuck is this? And whatever the fuck this is, we're going to examine it in a little bit more detail today. Now, I know my fridge is a really good backdrop to be sticking my screen, but I wanted to talk to you guys about the. Well, I'm trying to avoid swearing. I mean, I've already done it, so what's the point? No, Kim, in here with the hot goss immediately. There is no difference. Yeah. The difference is all in PR. It's all in how they're presenting, how the fourth estate presents them. There's no one else here at the moment. You're the only one. You're the only one here at the moment, so you can be wherever you want. You are the main. You're the main. You're the crowd. You're the crowd today. But I did want to go over this article that the ABC had released this morning. Last night, before I toddled off to bed, I saw that the ALP had tried to rush this bill through. They pushed it through the lower house, and it's been referred. Did you tell everyone you were live? No, I did not. I didn't do that. Should I do that? I'll do that. I'll jump on the Discord and tell everyone that I'm live. Here we go. Gosh. What are we doing? Oh, shoot. Shoot. Maybe I'll do that quickly now. Should I? Yeah, here we go. View on Twitch. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. And we're live. The legislation gets stopped by the Indies. It didn't. It passed because it had both. And this is why when there's the Senate is a lot more diverse than the lower house. And so a lot of bills like this unfortunately, because the Labor Party has a majority in the lower house, they can pretty much just push legislation through without much discussion. But where all the discussion has to happen is the Senate because of the crossbench, because of there is no, they don't have the majority in the upper house, so they have to work with the other parties. The coalition and the LNP both okayed this. They both rubber stamped it. The reason it's gotten held up in the Senate is because of the Greens. So what annoys the shit out of me now, I had an argument yesterday on the Tickety Talk. With an individual. And Emery, yes, I will send you my rant. Don't worry. I was crying last night, so I didn't film it, and there was all of the snot. But I will, because I was getting very frustrated with her because she kept sort of saying she was dismissing people's right to withhold their vote out of protest. And I explained to people the best way if they didn't want to vote out of protest. If people this is the thing, I explained people to them how the electoral system works. It doesn't mean that I think they should do one thing or another. I'm just explaining to everyone what their options are. And what sucks for me is because of where I live and the community that I live in and the region that I am, I don't get all of the options that everyone is entitled to. That everyone, I shouldn't say entitled to, that everyone else takes for granted more than anything else. They take for granted that they'll have at least 4 or 5 people on their ballot. They take for granted that one of them will be a left-leaning candidate. They take for granted that the Greens will at least win a couple of seats, and so that they will have some representation. We had a Greens rep in the state for my area before the last state election. We don't anymore. They didn't run a candidate in my area. They only had one in the upper house. And so there was no Greens person to vote for in the lower house. And that meant that there were a lot of people who looked at that and went, well, I'm just not voting at all. And so we lost the Greens person in the upper house because they didn't have anyone to vote for in the lower house. And a lot of the time, I think a lot of our understanding, because so much of our understanding about how our electoral system works comes from the books, comes from like how it's written down and explained to us and taught to us, and not from lived experience. A lot of the time we all just put it in the back of our mind and go, yep, that's our government's functioning, that's great, I'm going to move on with my day, I'm going to get on with my life. And so we only ever have the book written idea of how it works and not the practical application, not we don't really pay enough attention to how it works in practice and what's going on in practice. Because when there was like last year when Albo was running around threatening a double dissolution election, there were all these people jumping on there going, double dissolution election. And I'm like, it's the same people who don't realize that going to war and blowing up other nations is just a choice the government has in their wheelhouse. It's an option that they have. It might be one that certain people might want to avoid because of their own personal ideologies and beliefs, but it's just another bow in their quiver, the same way a double dissolution election is. This is just, it's a normal functioning of the electoral system. But we've also got the fourth estate who tries to turn it into something else, because what else would be the fucking point? When you get the numbers up, if Liberals and Labor come together in the upper house, it's a forlorn hope is what I'm asking. Yeah, they can. It's actually, so the Greens have actually referred it to a legal inquiry. Sorry, I'll pull up the, oh no, there is no fucking voting doesn't end the system. No, exactly. The system is broken. It's so broken it can't be fixed by voting for idiots in a red box or a green box. No. And this is the thing I was trying to explain to people as well. Like sorry, I need a tissue. Oh, the system is not going to give us. Oh, shit, I should have put my moon boot on. Oh, hobbling around. The system, I've been reading, I've got to pull it out because I want people to understand that I'm not only reading people who agree with me and being like, like I read Button's The Problem in Communism, Why Communism Fails. I read, like I read, I don't just read people I agree with, is what I mean. I also read people who disagree with me. And at the moment I'm reading Daniel Allen, Justice by Means of Democracy. Because I know, silly me. But because I'm doing a video on justice, I shouldn't say I've nearly finished it. I've nearly finished the script. I've nearly finished the script. But yeah, I sort of, people have this idea that our system provides justice. That's what it does. And it does it because of all these different systems that interact to give us voices in different areas. But just like the not-for-profits, and they will understand, I was talking to another follower last night about this. We had a brief conversation, I should say, and then they posted this on their Discord, which I 100% agree with. Sorry, blowing my nose. Don't worry, I'll cut this out so that everyone who watches it back doesn't have to listen to it. I say that, but as oh, actually, I've just got a message from that person. I was just thinking of you. I just saw I've got a message from you. I say that, but I know I'm going to forget, and I'm going to have someone message me and remind me. And I've got a message from them right now. So that tells me that, yes, indeed, I said I was going to do this and I didn't. Now, we do only have 45 minutes today. I do have to head off quite soon to go and get the kids, but I do want to jump on tonight to do a more fun sort of, I have to say some things so you can cut it. So, I have to say something so you can't cut it. Okay, no worries. That's all right. I won't cut it. I won't cut anything you say, Kim. Don't stress. But yeah, we divide up all of our resources and things that are siloed out to different organizations who are supposed to be doing different things. But what it means is that nobody actually has enough to do a good job anywhere. So when you look at not-for-profits and things that are started, and they're started as a business venture first. Right, not-for-profits are generally started as a business venture first. I know that sounds really convoluted, but it's generally, there's generally a, so okay, I'll use an Indigenous organisation as an example. all right? Because I think that's the one that's going to have the easiest time. Can't spell that. English is correct. I have some. English is crap. English is crap. Don't stress. Sorry, I was just silently reading your messages then. Oh, fuck, what was I saying? Lost my train of thought. This is why I need to write notes before I come on here, but I just don't because I'm. Anyway. Oh, yeah, Indigenous organisations. So a lot of the time when Indigenous organisation is started, it is started because there's a group of Indigenous people, there's an Indigenous mob, there's a mob who are not having their needs met, who aren't able to get access to things that they need, and who come together to try and access the things that they need. So yes, it's providing a service, but it has to operate as a business in order to be able to do that because it's the way we set up our capitalist system. So when they sit down and start writing the bylaws and start working out, like it's done as a business first. And having worked in not-for-profit space, a lot of the decision making that is done by people who are in charge, the people who get to make the decisions, is done from a business perspective, not from a community perspective. And this is why I left the last not-for-profit I was working at, because they were doing some dodgy stuff, and I know enough about policy and what they were doing, and I had access to files and things because of the work that I'd been asked to do by the CEO that they then denied asking me to do, despite the fact that there were witnesses who said it and emails that said it. And I didn't even have a job fucking description until I quit. Until I left. And I burnt the bridge when I left too. Like I wasn't going to, but then I just went, no, I can't go back there. It's toxic and I've got to make sure I don't. So I just fucking burnt that bridge. But the good thing is that everyone in the community already knows that they are full of shit. And that they're only out for themselves, really. I don't think the board know that. I think the board think that they're doing a good job, but everyone in the community knows that the CEO in particular is just out for themselves, and that the only way you can get anything from that organisation is if you personally know one of the managers there. Is the only way you can get anything, And like I say, this is someone who has been in a position to need to rely on the services of not-for-profits before and has had to fight these systems and things for the things that I need, and then going into this service and seeing how little interest they have in actually helping people. It's anyway, trying not to get too bogged down for that. But yeah, they are a business first, and because of that, the ethos within them is they're in competition. They're in competition because if it wasn't a business, they wouldn't be in competition. They could work with other not-for-profits. But especially in the area where I am, there are a lot of not-for-profits who do work together. And particularly, I will say, a lot of them seem to be more on a case-by-case basis. But there are some not-for-profits who will work together. But there are others, and I mean like housing providers, and who just... If you were to, like, for example, if you were to try and help a young person with housing, there's a not-for-profit down here who would tell you to stay in your lane. Like, yeah, that makes sense. The system forces you to take in the system, being part of the system. It all goes back to that lovely saying, the system cannot be broken apart by being inside. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You cannot fix the system inside democracy. You cannot fix housing inside the housing market. You can't solve poverty with charity. Yeah, the cat's on the table. Yeah. Zen. Zen. Oi, Zen. Zen. I'm going to throw a muffin at her. Hang on a second. Let me go get the cat off my fucking table. Oh, I need to put my boot on. Oh, you're on a chair next to the table. You can sit there. Okay, you can sit on the chair. Just don't sit on the table. Thank you for that. Oh, okay. Far out. I've got half an hour until I go and get the kids. I will come back on afterwards, though. Yeah, the cat's on the chair, the stool, I should say, next to the table. All right, there we go. Yeah. No, it's a rule for me too. No, they're not allowed on the table, but, it does look like she's on the table right up until you get up there and realize that, no, she's on the stool, which the stool is there for her because especially, like, when we're eating dinner and stuff, she wants to be up there where the family is, and she used to sit on my daughter's lap, but then my daughter would just, like, feed her dinner under the table. So now she has a stool and she sits at the end of the table. Ah! Oh. Oh, shit, I just moved my leg and I heard it. Damn it almighty. Damn it almighty. Anywho, who. We will jump back on later, don't stress. And you know what? Maybe Emery will forgive me if we're doing it at night so that they can join in too. So, I had a borrowed dog that used to love getting on the table. I wasn't best pleased. Yeah, no. No, and I'm not a fan of, animals on the table where food and things is served. Definitely not. Definitely not. Like, let's just be honest. Animals have diseases even when they are, domesticated in the home. we I don't want my kids eating dinner that their cats have licked. I don't want them getting worms. Like, come on, I have to deworm those kids enough anyway, just from the sandpit at school. Don't need any help. But yes, Danielle Allen, Justice by Means of Democracy. I do suggest anyone who understands that we can't change the system from inside. The sandpit at school, the bastion of germs. Yep. But I do think anyone who understands the system cannot be fixed from inside. Anyone who understands that they've designed the system to trap us perpetually within the same cycle of abuse, which I think I was watching a Sisyphus video last night where he was saying that the revolution will not be live streamed or something that he said. The video was called, and I felt the video didn't go into enough depth with what it was talking about, but he did a follow-up video that does go into a lot more depth. But one of the things he talks about in that video is about the way there are two kind of political movements. There's the one where we focus a lot on the way we treat people, the way we speak to people, caring about trauma, like trauma-informed care, basically is, and worrying about the language we use, like cancel culture, like all those kinds of things all tie into that idea of trying to use our voices in whatever way we can to make the area around us better, whatever that looks like. And so that is political activism in a way, but it is #slacktivism. It's a different form, and people want to sort of dismiss online space and online activism. There's a lot of discussion online about it, and what I find infuriating is that we seem to ignore the fact that there are people who literally do studies and research into this who aren't necessarily online. Like, if you want to jump offline and do some research and reading into this, there are plenty of people who've researched this topic and will look into it. And one thing is that so there's that type of activism, and then he also talks about more direct action when you're out in the streets doing stuff and protesting. And we know that certain groups of people tend to participate in certain types of political action at different rates. White people tend to do a lot more of the online slacktivism stuff, whereas people of color tend to do a lot more of the in community stuff. And a part of that is because community is a lot stronger amongst people of color than it is amongst the whites. There is there's a massive discussion of feeling lonely and stuff within white culture, particularly at the moment. And I say white culture loosely. Sisyphus is very real. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whitey's lost community, absolutely. And particularly within the Indigenous community, where I am, it's impossible not to be involved in community if you are an Indigenous person who's just connected to community. It's a natural part of being in community. Sorry, I got to put this boot on. I keep tripping over and hurting my own bloody foot. but it's just a given part of being Indigenous is being in community and being, like the idea of each according to his ability, each according to their need, is so inherent to what it means to be Indigenous. The idea that, like, when people say online, people jump online and say things like, well, why don't you give up your spare bedroom to somebody who needs it? Like, I don't need to be asked to do that by a bunch of white people online who don't understand in-person activism. I'm in my community already seeing to the needs of the people within my community. The reason we're having these discussions online is to try and encourage other people to do that as well. People who have lost community, the whites. We're not online trying to, and I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't conservative people of color. I'm not at all. And I'm not, but what I'm saying is when it comes to, my moon boot. The Trots and MLA seem to think that they can somehow take over the power system. Yeah, but we've all seen where that goes. Yeah, exactly. You remember Lenin. As in, like, because I know, I think was I alive? Fuck. But I have very limited memories. Sorry, I'm just teasing. I know that's not what you meant. I know that's not what you meant. Boot on. But yeah. And people call me a tanky because of that. I get called a tanky a lot because people don't understand what being a tanky actually is, and the idea of, for hostile takeover of nations outside of your own is really what I mean, again, this is historical context. Yeah, not actually that old, but like I have read what the failure of that revolution was. Yeah, absolutely. And exactly, like I've read Becker, why communism failed. People seem to think that we are unaware of the criticisms of our movements, when that is 90% of what I read. 90% of what I read isn't self-affirming, like Kinner's, how to do anarchism better. It's Becker, why communism failed. It's Allen, justice by means of democracy. It's the people who disagree with me because I need to better understand their arguments in order to better explain to them why they're wrong. And I'm not going to lie, like I do read a lot of, like at the moment I'm reading Grace Blakely, Vulture Capitalism, which I am very much enjoying. I'm very, very much. I mean, when I say at the moment I'm reading about 6 books at once at all times. I should do a little like a bookshelf tour at some point and show everyone my extensive reading collection. Because a lot of the time people will say things to me. I had a comment last night, even someone said to me, "Oh, I bet you still think like, it's so funny watching people who think they know anything about politics. Like I've got a PhD in the subject. I bet you still think the government pays with things through taxes." And I responded and said, "I'm currently completing my master's in public policy and I've read Piketty." Does that help you understand that no, like that's not who you're talking to here, or like but people do, they just assume that because you spend any time doing any sort of online activism that that's all you must be doing. And I think that is because that is the white approach to activism. It is this is it. And I think there's a reason that most of the leftist streamers and YouTubers that we know, not all, absolutely not all, but those who have the largest followings all tend to be white. Like podcasts like the Deprogrammed are really, really good because you've got people from 3 different nations all discussing political ideology and from a leftist perspective. So I would recommend that one to anyone who wants to sort of learn more about this and talk more about this. And it's quite a fun podcast too. It's not too serious. I mean, it is serious, like don't get me wrong, but they have fun. They have jokes. They have, they have cool people on there. I've discovered a lot of other great YouTubers through their podcast as well, through listening to their podcast, because they interview other YouTubers. They interview YouTubers and stuff about their political beliefs and ideologies and trying to explain how diverse the online left is to people. But yeah, sorry. So when you're bringing things online, like when you're the person who, and I think this is the problem with it as well, is when you're trying to feed the algorithm, because it's also your job, this is also how you make your money. Capitalism does what capitalism does. It results in some things not being discussed. And it also results in waiting until things become big news often before discussing them, because it means it's going to get eyeballs on it, which means we're not doing a lot of the work of the fourth estate or the so-called fifth estate of uncovering and being a check and a balance on, you know, what the legislative body, what the judiciary, what they are doing. So at the moment, and the reason I'm talking about this is because of this legislation that is trying to get passed right now through, it's been passed in the lower house and it has been held up in the Senate. Yeah, this isn't it. This is the massive issue. Like, you get a lot of rainbow community doing things, and it's really only the broken fuckers like me that don't do anything but fuck it. No, and uh, yeah, we're limping toward fascism. Absolutely. Yeah, no, and they absolutely don't. They absolutely don't. And I think that is why as well there is a lot of critiquing, like people like Professor Flowers. Okay, Professor Flowers disappeared offline after the whole thing that went down with Bush, but that's because this wasn't their only place that they were doing online activism. This wasn't the only place where they were interacting with community. You don't have to, when you see people like James Summerton who try to come back again and again and again and again because this is their only way of interacting with community. There are people, and again, like I'm very well aware of the fact there are people who have access issues and who have, that there are issues that mean that this can be your only way of interacting with community. And I don't, like, I'm not, but those people tend to be in the in community, like the community that we've built. For example, there are lots of people in our community who are unable to access other forms of community, who are unable to access community in public, who, you know, aren't safe in the community that they were born into and brought into, because, you know, family is not always the safest place for people, and who find community through other means. Absolutely. But the fact that because James Summerton lost his platform, he also lost his community is the link I'm trying to make there, rather than being like, you know, people who don't have access to community who find it online. That the online space is a great tool for that. And it's a great tool for education. And it's a great tool for having these conversations. The problem is when it's the be all and end all. And you know, ContraPoints in Natalie Wynn made an interesting point in the Sisyphus video, the follow up as well, where she said that BreadTube is basically like a fan base. Like it's a I can't remember the word that she used. I'm trying to remember. It's a I can't remember the word that they used. Anyway, not the cake. Yeah, it has to be the icing on the cake, not the cake. Yeah, if you could get these people just to join a damn union, absolutely. Sorry, my sentences are too long for comments. No, don't stress. Don't stress. You're fine. Absolutely. And so yeah, and so a lot of YouTubers, like people like ContraPoints, like people like Philosophy Tube, YouTube's their job, and the people who are in their communities are fans of theirs. And that was one thing, especially when creating the Ko-fi and that I really didn't want to have happen. Like, I want to be able to make money from doing this so that I can focus more on the community building and work that we're trying to do and we want to get done. Like, the thing I've been working on at the moment is doing a not-for-profit that particularly is a diversionary program for young people to get them out of, you know, the fucking prison cycle bell loop that we keep chucking 10-year-olds because we're so bloody stupid. But anyway, just as a species we are. Anyway, let me pull up this article just quickly. Parasocial relationships. Yeah. And she called it a fandom. That's what she called it. She called it a fandom. And it is a little bit of a fandom. It's like, you know, people talk about crossovers between creators and things. Like when they see Philosophy Tube pop up in a H Bomber Guy video, everyone's like, oh my God, crossover. And it's like, it just really highlights the fact that this is a job for these people, you know? And I feel like having a platform as a means of earning money, as a means of, like, none of that, there's nothing wrong with any of that. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But the fact that so many people on the left take up that space as being someone who they have these giant platforms and people rally around them and then treat that like their activism. And there are leftists who do this for a job, like Vosh, like Hassan Piker. I'll say it right now. Maybe someone will actually watch one of my videos and see what I'm saying about them. Probably not. Who it's their job, but they are performing as though it's activism. And I've got no problem with it being your job and it being educational and that, and all your only thing on there is doing education, all the rest of it. But Vosh in particular treats it like he's doing activism, and that the people in his community are doing activism by being a part of his community. That's how I feel when I'm watching his streams. He can sit there and he can say, no, that's not the case. They could sit there and they could say, like, I don't at all, I don't feel like that's right. Like, I'm very clear about the fact that this is an activism. But by their demeanor and by the way actions speak much louder than words. And I don't tend to listen to people what people say as much as I watch what they do, because I feel like people lie. Yeah, it's like imagining A doesn't have DMs with B and C. It's a fucking tiny world. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And even in the Australian TikTok community, the Australian TikTok community with people who talk about housing, who do you think of when I say that? List off the people that you think of when I say that. You've got people like Purple Pingers, Real Estate with Rach, Lila RPG, who also does the Turf Twitter Roundup, people like Ed the Progressive, people like that angry woman, the people who are doing this stuff. I'm trying to remember what Amy's new TikTok account's been called. Amy, who went viral through Q&A for talking about the housing market. These are the people we think of on TikTok when we think of people who are fighting these issues within our community. I got all of them on speed dial. Like, we all know each other. We all talk to each other. Geordie Pepper Piggers has agreed to join our run for office, our federal run for office, which I'm working on at the moment. Fuck, it's going to be difficult. I'm very nervous about it. I need to get these people in a room together in person so we can workshop. But yeah, we all fucking know each other. But again, the difference, and I think this is the reason why exactly what I'm saying, like people like Purple Pingers, Geordie is going to these real estate agents. He's going to these home opens. He is showing people what's being expected. He's pulling back the rug. He is showing people. He's doing the work of enlightening people, right? And he's drawing a lot of attention to the cause in that way, showing that the standard of living that's being expected by people. I don't then need to create a TikTok account getting sued by Ray White. Yeah, trying to sue Geordie. Like, I can't wait to see that go down, because he's a lawyer. Like, they are not going to go he fucking knows his rights. He knows his rights. He bloody well knows what he's allowed and not allowed to say. Like, why would they try and sue him? It doesn't make any sense to me, but anyway. But why would I then? People have said to me all the time, you should do this, you should do that. And I'm like, but there are people who are already doing that work. There is already that information out there to be found. Like, Purple Pingers is already doing that. He's highlighting how little we allow people and tell them that that's enough in our, in our communities. And because we've kind of formed this community, and we're all supporting each other, and I'm Real Estate with Rach does it as well. Like, Real Estate with Rach and I are, mates, and we've got a podcast together that we have not worked on in over a year. That's how you know your podcast fails, when you don't work on it for over a year. But yeah, this idea that we have that the people have in the comment section, the people have who are watching the content, because I get that comment 100 times a day, or get offline and do something about it. Why do all of you why do you all assume that the only place I'm doing this is here? I pinned a video on my TikTok explaining that I work in the housing space. At that time, I was actually working on a I was working on a project with Shelter WA for the Homelessness Week, and I posted for Homelessness Week 2023, and I posted that and was like, "This is what I'm working on just right now in my community. Like, this is." But it's the go-to. It's everyone's go-to assumption is that if you're online talking about something, you're only online talking about it. Now, when I first left the cult that I was a part of, first thing I did was enroll in university to study a legal degree. That was it. That was what I wanted to do. And I wanted to take down the cult. But the minute I started paying attention to what was going on around me in the world, I wanted to tackle immigration. That became my focus. You have to go longer than a decade before it's a failed podcast. Okay. A decade without speaking online and without making any sort of podcast. Excellent. Sorry, it just sounded like someone rocked up to my house. Oh, which they might have done. I did order more medication for my kid the other day. That's all right. They'll knock on the door if they are. But yeah, this video, sorry, back to what we were supposed to be talking about. I've got to go in 10 minutes now, and I will come back on. We'll be back later. We'll be back later. Don't stress. So this article that I'm talking about on ABC News, which I can't find where I put it now. I can't find where I put the article. Here we go. I'm sorry. I just pulled up ABC News, and the first article that pops up, I'm just going to show you. I have to share the screen on this one. This is just too much. This is just too much. Hang on a second. Yep. Conditions imposed on urologist accused of blowing nose on a surgical curtain. Who of us who has not been suffering so badly from hay fever? We have not wiped our nose on something we should not have. But I doubt any of us were a doctor, a medical doctor, in a hospital at the time. Sorry. I just can't. Oh. I just can't. God almighty. Now, God almighty. Oh. I really do. I actually shouldn't be sitting here watching, just reading the news headlines, should I? Because where is that? Right. Let's not read out the headlines because it's really depressing, isn't it? Remembering. Oh my God. An Albany Pride group gathered to protest his comments. Council reiterates statements linking LGBTQIA plus community to minor attracted persons. Here we go. This is what we're talking about. Here's what we're talking about. The lovely Tom Crowley is going to explain to us why the Coalition and the Greens have pushed Labor's urgent migration bill into a weeks-long inquiry. Now, the Coalition actually backed this, though. The Coalition did back this to start off with. Sorry, I'm just... Yeah, there is no difference. That is how we all started when we entered the chat. Yeah, but a doctor, God, that is gross. I know. That's what I'm like, I can completely understand doing that because we've all been in that situation, right, with our nose dripping like a tap and we're like, oh, this tea towel, I'll just wipe my nose on that and then chuck it in the wash. It's fine. I've never done it on a curtain that I couldn't immediately, not saying that I couldn't immediately throw in the wash. That I will say that. But to be a doctor in a hospital and wipe your nose on a bloody curtain, I can't. No, Coalition didn't do shit. They can't even tie a bow in shoelaces. No, they can't. And my youngest now officially knows how to tie their own shoes, by the way. That was our latest. We've been working on tying our shoes, and yesterday they came up to me and they're like, "Look, Mum," and they sat down at my feet and they had their laces there, and they're like, and it took 15 minutes, but both laces were tied by the end. So proud of my little one. You know that like fine motor skills. It's like, oh yeah, we're winning. Mm. Yeah, Mr. Potato Head couldn't get drunk in a pub. Yeah, yep. And and Barnaby Joyce couldn't stay sober on a deserted island with. First thing that man's doing is working out how to make alcohol, how to produce alcohol. Oh, pass the loop in extra time. No, I haven't. I didn't. I did not know that you could do that. So there you go. I must admit, I was never able to keep my shoes tied as a kid, and no one ever told me that trick. And so I have always just done slip-on shoes. Even my sneakers now are like those elastic ones that you don't have to tie and untie. You can just pull them on this is 10 minutes. I think I can do 5 more. I think I can do 5 more. The alarm's going to go off anyway when I have to go and get my children. But anyway, so on Tuesday, the government surprised the parliament with a bill that could force the hand of people who obstruct deportation and threatens countries with travel bans if they refuse to accept deportees. Is this sounding a little bit Trumpian to anybody else? Like, are we... As long as you have an alarm, because time isn't real. Yes, I do have an alarm. I have an alarm set to remind me to go and get my kids from school because time is not real. You are correct. And I do need the constant reminders. Holy shit. Okay. So the High Court has been considering a case of an Iranian man, known by the pseudonym as ASF-17, who fits the description of a man resisting deportation. And Iran fits the description of a country that refuses to accept deportees who come unwillingly. Isn't it funny that the country he's afraid of returning to, because the country he's afraid of returning to for whatever reason, is more willing to acknowledge his human right to travel than we are? I'll go and get my I think it's Article 17. I'm not like I can never remember the articles off the top of my head, but I think it's Article 17 is the one about religion. Article 20 about the freedom of movement. Whatever. Interesting that the country he's afraid of returning to because he's afraid of being persecuted, they're more willing to acknowledge his human rights than we are. His human rights to freedom of travel. Like, and we have deprivation of liberty centres. We have places and we have cases and we have allowances that already exist within our existing legal framework that allow us to detain people who need to be detained, who need to be kept from the community for whatever reason. I am saying that, not believing that such places should exist, by the way. Like, I do think that there needs to be some form of deprivation of liberty centre, but I do not think it needs to exist in the way that it does in the prison industrial complex. Our prison system is cracked completely from top to bottom. And Andreas Malm. Sorry, I'm trying to remember how to pronounce the first name. Andreas Malm, How to Blow Up an Oil Pipeline. The second book you should write is How to Blow Up the Prison Industrial Complex. Please, can you write us? I mean, I know that if you read How to Blow Up an Oil Pipeline, like read the book and you'll actually understand that you can use it to also blow up the prison industrial complex. Or it explains why it happens. And the point of the Malm's book is also that the government is the reason that the oil pipelines get blown up, not the individuals blowing up the oil pipeline. I mean, that's how I read it and interpret it anyway. Whatever. It's the wording, like, try harder. This isn't something any Labor member should be calling into Parliament. Yeah, absolutely. This isn't something any Labor member should be calling into Parliament, and it is a Labor bill. And I'm arguing with people on TikTok. I got people on TikTok arguing with me that it is like, I used to think the Liberal and Labor Party were the same when I was 13 too. I thought this was a base take when I was 13. But then I grew up and I grew a couple extra brain cells. Really? Did you? Because you clearly can't read. You are clearly unable to read if you think that you want to sit there and tell me that Labor and Liberal are so fucking different when this reads like the Medivac. This reads like the Dutton's attempts to stop Medivac. This could literally, this is phase 2 of Dutton's attempts to yeah, pretty sure 90% Iran just refuses to take back anyone that leaves the country and applies for asylum in the Western world. I know they definitely refuse to take back anyone who comes unwillingly. But yeah, and look, and this is, I'm not at all saying that Iran is the good gold standard. Like, this is a country that certain people, because they belong to certain religions, aren't allowed to get birth certificates. They don't exist legally because they belong to a certain religion. So I'm not at all saying that this is the gold standard for human rights or anything like that. What I'm saying is a country that won't even offer people birth certificates if they belong to certain religious organizations is more willing to acknowledge that people have the right to not return if they don't want to than the Western Liberal Democratic government of the Australian Labor Party. That you all are telling me is so much better than the fucking LNP. Like, that's for everyone who says that. Fucking hell. Okay. Now. Now, this is really important as well, not to forget for people while we are reading this. They were forced to release 150 detainees into the community after an earlier High Court case last year, which, again, we have had people dying in offshore detention centres because of lack of access to medical care that we, as their detainees, are required to provide for them. We have been breaking international humanitarian law that we have not, like, again, everyone's like, show me where it says that in our constitution. Show me where we have written that into legislation. What's the word? Oh God, I've been smoking too much weed, and half of my language skills are. I actually find it a lot easier to find my words when I'm high and I'm on a break. I'm on a THC break at the moment, so I'm finding it much more difficult to find my words suddenly. We haven't. What's the word when you? Like, we signed on to it. We told the international community we agreed with these laws and guidelines and rights. We signed on and told the international community that, yes, we agree this should be a human right, and then refused to, what's the word? It's just escaped my fucking head. I'll remember it later. You know what? Later on tonight when I come back on, I'm going to be so much more, like, we're going to have already read this article by then too. So I'll be so much more ready to know what I'm fucking talking about. But anyway. Home Affairs Secretary Stephanie Foster told the Senate committee on Tuesday night this bill would give the government many tools, extra tools, to deal with this fresh case should it go against the government. Like, when people say that the judiciary acts as a check and balance on government, I like to point out shit like this. The government is already trying to prevent the High Court from protecting this person's humanitarian rights by writing a legislation that allows them not to. We haven't codified it? No, not that we haven't codified it. What's the word? Oh, I'm going to be thinking about that all afternoon now. Fuck. So, the coalition actually had no problem passing this in the lower house, though, in the House of Reps, which I find interesting. But they've sided with the Greens in blocking it in the Senate. So, senators from the coalition and the crossbench had a bevy of other questions about the bill that could not be answered. Now, again, I really hate when journalists do that. We ignore the role the Greens are playing with this. I am not a Greens stan. I would very much prefer there to be another left-wing party that was not basically a psyop draining the energy of our youth into, respectability politics of the Greens annoys the shit out of me. All the people who comment as well and say, oh, the Greens are embarrassing. It's like, no, they're not. And the reason they keep leaning so heavily on respectability politics is because of people like you, because they're playing that stupid fucking game because they don't understand politics well enough. But anyway, whatever. I say that as well, having been deep in the fucking Greens, like deep involved in many, many of their election campaigns. They just don't. Anyway, my bestie is running their current campaign. My best friend is running their current campaign, and she's so fucking mad at me because I keep ranting about this. She's like, shut the fuck up. I'm doing a great job. I know what I'm doing. I know you do. You do. But you're also beholden to an organization that doesn't want you to do what you know you need to do most of the fucking time. Like, she sent me a big rage about some of the things that they have to do as... Anyway, not going to go into that. I don't want to get her in trouble. But she is such an ironed-on greenie. Like, you'll never get her. Never get her. What the fuck are they going to do with the real numbers start moving about, given the climate catastrophe coming? Like, you'll never get the numbers of Navy boats. No. Absolutely not. I'm just going to pop that up on, like, what they're trying to do is stop people coming here by any means necessary, regardless of whether that's even necessary, like whether that's it's mind melting, it's brain melting. Okay, so though the coalition and the Greens have very different questions, because the coalition obviously want to make sure that these people can't ever come back again, and that maybe we could just shoot them instead. Maybe that'd be easier. I think that's what Dutton would prefer. Dutton would prefer to just, like, can we just shoot them? Rather than deport them, let's just shoot them. That's what Dutton's problem is with the bill. In my belief, in my opinion. I have no evidence to support that, and I am not at all, in any way, shape or form... I don't think I could defame Dutton, even if I said he was just taking, asylum seekers out the back and shooting them. He does enough for his opinion, for his like, again, Dutton put up a GoFundMe for people who are flood victims. Hello? What's going on? That was weird. Anyway, so Dutton puts up a time to get the little people. Yes, time to get the little people, please. Thank you. Yes. It's utter slop because they allow anyone with money to come here in a plane. Yeah, exactly. Dutton puts up a GoFundMe for the victims for flood victims in Queensland, and everyone rips him a new one for it, as they fucking should. Albo goes to a photo op for the Red Cross homelessness appeal, and the news media are covering it like, oh, yay, like Red Shield appeal, like New Year for the Red Shield appeal. Like, what is the difference between those two scenarios? Can someone explain to me how we're going to rip Dutton a new one for doing the exact same fucking thing Albo is, appealing to charity to fix the problems the government should be addressing? Do not tell me that these two parties are not the same when I am literally going through. I can find case after case after case after case after case after case after case of all of their policies, of all of their policies, of all of their actions leading and heading to the same fucking conclusion. We are no different to Russia. We are no different to Russia, except that we have the illusion of democracy is a lot thicker. It's a lot more opaque for us. And that we're not voting for the person who's actually in charge. The people who are actually in charge are people like Twiggy and Reinhardt, and they are in charge no matter who we vote in. They don't give a fuck. They don't have to skew the voting in their favor, because they just get everyone who is being voted for on their side. It doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't matter if Labor or the Liberal Party wins. The property developers are funding them both. The property developers are sending them both buckets of money every fucking year. They don't give a shit which side of the aisle wins, because they win either way. We are no fucking different. Nobody can tell me we are any fucking different to Russia, except that there's less homelessness and housing and security in Russia. We also go in, like, with what Russia's doing in Ukraine, with what Russia's doing in the Ukraine. I'm sorry, what have we been doing in fucking Haiti? What's going on in Haiti right now is a direct result of American imperialism in getting involved in other nations and trying to take over for themselves. And they just do it in a more opaque way. They do it in a more, they hide what they're doing. They put like again, we all know that the CIA is just around doing coups all of the fucking time. Look what fucking happened here when Whitlam decided that he was going to try and stand up to them, and not even stand up to them on our behalf. He just wanted access to the information that they had at Pine Gap. He just thought the Aussies should have some access to Pine Gap, and it's it's bomb blowing. Like Pine Gap is the reason that Israel is able to bomb Palestine. Pine Gap is the reason that Israel is able to bomb Palestine into oblivion. And we want to sit here and say that we're somehow like the Labour Party is different to the Libs and we're not the same as Putin's Russia. This is exactly why justice by means of democracy is exactly why all of this shit, it's all just a psyop. It's all just designed to keep us peddling away in the system, believing that the system's going to work. All of this is it's smoke and mirrors. It's all fucking smoke and mirrors. And I keep trying to point out to people just using the examples of money, of how fake it is. It's numbers and I can't believe that cryptocurrency hasn't shown people just how fake it is. So let's take this fake thing, make it even more fake. And no, like backing it on the gold standard doesn't either, because we've just taken something, we've taken a shiny rock and assigned value to it in our society in order to deny people access to certain goods and services that the community should just be providing, because that's what communities are supposed to fucking do. The human race didn't survive. Like people go on about, we've pulled more people out of poverty. The human race would have, if this was our approach to community and resource management back in the days when we were first running around the Sahara, we would not have survived as a fucking species. Like, do we not understand how fucked that is? If we took the approaches that we have towards like managing our resources, which is what economics is all about. It's all about resource management. If we took our approach to resource management today and we're using it on the Sahara, running around like back in Australia, like before colonization, it would have been terra nullius. There wouldn't have been anyone here when the colonizers rocked up if we were using this same fucking resource management tool to determine who lived and who died. We wouldn't have survived as a fucking species. And this is why we're not going to survive as a species, because we keep hanging on to it like it's the golden answer when it's literally killing us. Oh my God. We are worse than the Russians because at least Putin's honest about what he's doing. Like he got a 90% victory in the election. Like he's honest about it. There is no other option but me. It doesn't matter. He had armed guards going up to people's doors, collecting their votes for him. At least he's honest about it. You know, Murdoch just like fills our heads with brain worms, and Reinhardt just takes all of the money she donates to the Liberal government and the Labor government back through tax write-offs. Like it's not even like Reinhardt gives millions of dollars to both of their political parties, and they give her billions and billions in tax write-offs, in like companies like fucking, some of these companies pay negative tax. They get more tax back than they paid. Do you know a single individual human being in your community who has ever received back more tax than they have paid? You have to pay tax on your social service payments in this country. I pay tax on the payments that I get for like childcare rebates. You have to pay tax on every dollar you get in this country, unless you're fucking Tesla or Reinhardt or Twiggy or like, sorry, I do have to go now. Yeah, I get you. I've spent a lifetime trying to tell people this has meant that no one talks politics with me. Well, you found your people. You found your people. This is all we fucking want to talk about. Your average norm core whitey doesn't appear to have the brain cells to work it out. They really don't. They really don't. And even when it's shoved in front of them, they say things like, oh, yeah, I used to think that when I was 13 too. It's like the wisdom of child out of the mouths of babes. Like my kids say to me all the time, like, does it matter if the blue team or nothing changed? The blue team were in charge, and then the red team came in charge and nothing changed. Like, what, does it matter who's in charge, if it's the blue team or the red team? I was like, no, no, you're right, kids. It doesn't matter who's in charge. Yeah. How can we expect young people who've grown up in this world, been told They can see that it's all made up, being told, no, it's not. You'll learn as you get older. And then they get older and things are just getting worse and worse and worse. And they're seeing it more and more clearly. And they're going, so all that really happened was you all drank the Kool-Aid. You all, like everyone says, I'd never get involved in a cult. You fucking are. You're in the cult of capitalism. And the people who are around you telling you you're in a cult, you're calling them cookers. I remember the Guardian printing how money is created, and we were waving it under people's nose saying, look, see, and they just don't get it. Yeah, yep. And when I tell people that people say, what, you can't just expect the government to print money, I'm like, no, the banks are the ones printing the money. The banks get to decide who does and doesn't have access to money. The banks are the ones printing the money and injecting the money into the economy as they see fit. This is not, no one voted for them. No one voted for any of the members of the RBA board that I know. Like, we have no democratic process to choose the people who are in charge of deciding most of the monetary process that we have in this country. Democracy? Where? Where is this democracy that you're all so keen on telling me we live in? Can't see it. Can't see it. Doesn't fucking exist. Kool-Aid capital of capital. Yep. No one would let a member of the RBA in their kids. Very true. Very true. They are some of the most toxic human beings on the planet. I try telling my boomer parents that they are the same party, and they look at me with a blank stare. They do, and it doesn't even matter. You can put put a picture of Albo, and when people say that as well, oh, the Murdoch media, I'm like, look at what they did to Dutton. Look at what they did to Albo. Look at the way they framed these two things. Yes. Murdoch will side with whoever is giving him what he wants. What Labor do in order to get, the press that they want is to give Murdoch what he fucking wants. We are not, I would really like to believe, and this is why as well I feel like Hobbes is just such because he says that the government gets their authority through the people. We give up our authority to them, and so we owe them because basically, to try and summarize it very, very briefly, we would be worse off without them, and so we owe them our loyalty. That's the word I was looking for. We have to do what they say because we're worse off without them. And then you got Locke over here going, no, we allow them, they get their authority from us, and we allow them that authority because they give us certain things. But if they aren't doing that, then we have the authority, we have the right to take back that authority. They don't have the divine right of rulers. Hobbes was very much a divine right of rulers type dude. Now, I do have to sign off. I do have to end the stream there. I know we've only been talking for an hour and it made absolutely no sense. But what we are going to do is I'm going to come back in about 2 hours and we are going to talk more about this. So thank you all so much for joining me. I'm so sorry that we got absolutely nowhere today except for me ranting about the Kool-Aid of capitalism. Jump on the Ko-fi if you want to join the Discord. Follow me here, follow me there, follow me everywhere. Like, share, subscribe, all of those wonderful things. I will message on the Discord when I'm going back live. So if you want to know when I'm going live and you want to be part of these chats, join the Discord. The link is on the Ko-fi page. I think I've worked out how to stop the link from expiring, so you don't have to sign up to the Ko-fi to get a link. If you want to be signed a role immediately on signing up and not have to wait for one of the admins to assign you a role, then you can do it, just pay $1 and it will automatically assign you one. But it only takes about 48 hours for someone to assign you a role. So save your $1. It's all good. And join our chat because we talk about this shit all the time. And we'll be talking about it again later on this afternoon. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you very, very soon. Literally in a few hours. Mwah. I need to